Good morning. I'm here to tell you that I don't think the bailout is going to work. The bailout is not going to work because it's just money being used to buy illiquid assets. It's not going to work because if it's either tied to mortgages or is it tied to the stock market. They aren't entirely clear on that. And the stock market has been going down, down, down. And the reason it's going down is because people don't have trust or confidence. They see the stock market now as a great big old casino where all the games are rigged against them. So who wants to put their money into a losing game? Who wants to put their money on a losing bet? Nobody. And so that's part one. People don't have the trust, and they're not going to invest if they know their money's going to be lost. Secondly, the other part that is needed after the trust is trust, justice, that somehow this terrible thing happened, and they're kind of implying that, oh well, people didn't know, it was just a sudden surprise, and so the bailout is here. But people are a little bit smarter than that. They know somebody planned things. They planned things real good, and now the whole plan has messed up, and so they're unhappy. And what people want to see is some justice. If a company needs to be bailed out, the upper management needs to be fired. You know, that would send a message. If something illegal was done, somebody needs to be prosecuted and punished. And that will show people that there's justice, and they'll also encourage the trust thing. That's part of it. The other part is corruption. Corruption just means that the more money you spend on stuff, it'll just disappear to some corrupt payoff system. Now, one of the things I've done is I've did a little research, and I've also written to my congressman. I've sent to my congressman a letter basically stating that about building confidence, justice is served, and regulations. They took away regulations in 1999 that made a lot of this possible. And putting those regulations back in will also foster trust and confidence in the system. Until they do that, all the money they're spending is just going to go down the drain. The plug is not in, the drain is running out. The other thing is that there's entities that they say are too big to fail because they're worldwide. Well, that simply tells us that they should never have gotten that big in the first place. Anything that's too big to fail needs to be broken up into smaller pieces so the failure will not affect the whole. So anybody who believes that this bailout is going to work, well, I have a worthless certificate here for $1 billion, and maybe I want some too of this bailout that's not going to work. So took that in mind. The other interesting thing is I looked up what that thing was. It was protecting the markets at one point, and it was called the Glass-Steagall Act. And basically it was done away with in November of 1999 by some other law sponsored by Phil Gramm and signed into law by Bill Clinton. And so this law was in effect from the Depression, and they did away with it in 1999 to make all this wonderful stuff possible. And they published an article in New York Times in September 30th of 1999 about the stuff that was about to happen. And it's basically Fannie Mae eases credit to aid mortgage lending. And some people thought that's really wonderful because now a lot of people can get mortgages that couldn't before. But there's this little paragraph down here where somebody says, if they fail, the government will have to step up and bail them out the way it stepped up and bailed out the thrift industry. That was back in the 80s. So in 1999, they knew the bailout was coming. They knew that it was pretty likely to come. So this isn't something that just happened overnight or in the past few months. They've known about it for 8 or 9 years. And now they're taking you to the cleaners. So I wrote to my congressman, and I got replies back. Out of the 3 letters that I sent, I got 2 replies. One of them, credit where credit is due, Russ Feingold, He said he voted against the law, and he described why, because basically it's just money, there's no regulation in it, and it doesn't really look out for the taxpayers' interest in the deal. And kudos to Russ Feingold on that. For my representative, I got a reply, very long and detailed, from the House of Representatives, Paul Ryan. He said he voted for the legislation. He wasn't exactly for it. He says he actually hated this legislation. He hated to do it. He really resented the fact that Congress is being called on to bail out private business on Wall Street. So it's kind of like a mixed thing here. Like, he really hates this thing, but still he voted for it. So I'm not sure exactly how we should take that. And then there were the debates last night. I eventually turned them off. I was so bored. They weren't getting to anything of any substance. They should have had somebody like Ralph Nader or Chuck Baldwin or Cynthia McKinney or Bob Barr get up and mix it up a little bit. Then you would have had some different opinions, some different alternatives, and not been falling asleep hearing the same old, same old. And I remember them saying something like, oh, and Senator so-and-so voted for this pork barrel, and Senator so-and-so for these earmarks. Like, those are so bad. Well, if they're so bad, both of them, the two, voted for the bailout, which was $700 billion, and after the earmarks and pork became $850 billion, and they voted for it. And so they're all in this together. They all collaborate to make the money just go away. You know, that $150 billion of earmarks, you know, it was for good stuff like rum and NASCAR and Hollywood. And if you look at the text of the bill, there's a whole section of little added-on things that have nothing to do with mortgages or this Wall Street financial things. So that's kind of my take on it. It's not going to work because they need to get the confidence back, they need to get the regulations back, they need to get some justice served before people will trust the system. So that's my take on it, and I hope you've been writing your Congress people and getting something said. So I just thought I'd give you an update on the way things have been going, and we'll be seeing you later.